over the last few weeks, I've had a lot of conversations with people about how do we change the world. I'm sure you're no stranger to the idea that there are protests going on across the continent, that people are crying out for justice, for equality, for a change in the system, a change for the better in the system. And that leads to that idea of, okay, so we want change, but how do we do it? Like literally, what is the practical steps we need to take in order to initiate change, in order to change the structure of the system that we live within? My name is Ed Trevors. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. I get to serve in the beautiful town of Shelburne, Nova Scotia, in the awesome parish of Christ Church, Shelburne, that sits on the ancestral and the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And today I want to talk about one aspect, one principle of how we make lasting, substantial change in the world. And it's a very, very biblical principle. It's called multiplication. Yes, that thing, 2 times 2 equals 4. 4 times 4 equals 16. 16 times 16 equals, you get the point. If you look at how Jesus, if you look at Jesus' example of how he brought about bringing in the gospel of a loving, merciful God that wanted nothing more than to be with his creation, what you'll see is Jesus encountering 1 or 2 or 3 people at a time, inviting them in, talking with them, getting to know them, sitting around campfires, eating with them, working with them, engaging with them to do the work that he was called to do. He does it. Jesus brought the gospel into the world not by doing it all himself, not by ramming it through the religious structures of the day, not by the destruction of the oppressive government and cultural structures that existed, but through multiplication. He talked to Andrew. He talked to Peter. He talked to Nathaniel. He talked to Bartholomew, James, John. He talked to the disciples. Now, absolutely, Jesus talked to 5,000 people at a time. Jesus talked to 3,000 people at a time. He talked to hundreds of people at a time. He absolutely did. At one point, the Bible even says there are hundreds of people, not just listening to him one day, but hundreds and hundreds of people were following him. We're following him on a regular, probably everyday basis, learning from him and learning from his teachings. But Jesus multiplied himself by building relationships in 1s and 2s, by building relationships, by building real, strong, trusting relationships. He brought the gospel into the world by building strong, powerful, trusting relationships with a handful of people. We know of the 12 disciples, but we also know of the Marys, and we know of Martha, and we know of Lazarus. So Jesus built these gospel-sharing, world-changing relationships. That's how he did it. He changed the world by building a few wonderfully strong relationships. Systemic change doesn't happen with laws. It doesn't happen by trying to force the system to change. That breeds contempt. It breeds resentment. Systemic change, the kind of change we want, the stuff that lasts, the stuff that leads to further, greater change. It happens by the handfuls. You and I get together and we talk. You and I get together with other people and we talk. You and I and those other people get together with even more people and we talk. And soon, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are hearing the same message that you and I once had. They're hearing the same conversation that you and I once had. They're listening to the same arguments and the same guiding principles and the same hopes and the same dreams and the same prayers that you and I once shared. There's an old story of a man, and he does something that the man serves a king, and he does something that the king is very, very happy with, and the king says, I'm going to reward you with anything you want. Up to half my kingdom, he says. You can have up to half my kingdom. And the man says, he takes a chessboard, he takes a checkers board, and he said, I want you to put a gold coin in the first one. And then in the next square, I want you to double up that gold coin. So in the first one you put 1, the second one you put 2, and then keep doing that. Every square I want you to double up what was in it before. Have you ever done the math on that? 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 4, 4 leads to 8, 8 leads to 16, 16 leads to 32, 32 leads to 64, 64, 128, 128 is 256, 256 is 512, 512 leads to 1024, 1024 leads to 2048, and so on and so on and so on. There are 64 squares on a chessboard. Can you imagine the social change that could take place if we created a network of people using Jesus' multiplication principle? What's the end number? One of the ways you change the world is by multiplying yourself. It's not by grand speeches. It's not by grand political operations. The way you change the world is by multiplying yourself. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up His countenance upon you. May you know the peace of being in God's presence. And may you multiply yourself so that this world experiences deep, needed, substantial change. Amen.